couple of times.
Not a bad idea. Movie
Yeah.
night, movie theaters in the PJs.
Yeah, wouldn't that be cool to just have a networking meeting where everybody shows up in their pajamas and robes?
It's a good idea. Have a sleepover meeting.
Yeah, so we've had a lot of fun, just kind of noodling back and forth on the word consideration. But the the other word that I mentioned early on, if you want to restate the definition of respect, please?
Well, one of them was a feeling of deep admiration. Let's see, for someone or something elicited by their abilities, qualities, or achievements. So obviously, then that's very subjective too, and and it and it's oh, what's the word? There has to be something that happens to make you feel that way. In other words, it's I can't think of the word right now.
Causal
Well, something like that, but it
or transactional?
definitely has a. You have to show me first, and then I will.
Let's read that again. And is there anything else there?
A feeling of deep admiration for someone or something elicited by their abilities, qualities, or achievements.
So it's kind of interesting. I think most people would be thrown to hear that like it's about other people. It's something that's from your skin out. But how about the person that you have this admiration for is yourself? That over time, you've been a good doobie. Uh, people just plain like you. And, quite frankly, you could be counted on to be consistent. And I got to tell you, I think I got trained in my early 20s by a man who basically said, "You'll do okay with people if you're just consistent, Bill. If you're going to be a prick, but be consistent at it, and also be, yeah, also be empathetic. People will take a longer time to take a shine to you if you're not, nice. However, there are a lot of really successful pricks in the world. So I've taken that to heart, and over time, I've decided that it's probably easier for me to be a nice guy than it is to be one of those things. And I'm not necessarily going to be looking for the opportunity to interact with somebody where they're intentionally being dominating, if you will. So the whole idea of respect sounds like it's something that is earned over time, like there's a score being kept. And you remember that old saying, where 1,000 attaboys, you get to be a leader of men and all this, but one aw shit sets you back to zero again, right? So where does respect go if there's a breach of respect? And is respect something that is um, unilateral? It only exists in one place, like my respect for you, but you may not respect me. I'm not sure that that's how it works.
Well, I think when we were talking about respect for yourself, because I was thinking the same thing about the word consideration. Like you should be considerate towards yourself as well. So, and
Agreed.
that's not always what people do. Um, if if respect, well, I mean, you hear it often in relationships, like you lost respect. That I just don't respect you anymore, and that's hard to gain back once you lose it. So I think the possibility is always there to have that respect until you. It's almost like it's always there until you prove otherwise to someone. I mean, that's like it that level is always offered to you until you screw it up or somebody else screws it up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So it's interesting. All of the all the traps and landmines that we build into our culture. Like, why is it that once you've lost respect, you can't get it back ever? I think some people would say that's nonsense. It has to do with this whole notion of forgiving people. And I know that there are some people who say, I've got to be prepared for my next interaction with you because, quite frankly, I don't trust you. I don't respect you. I don't want to be treated the way that you treat me. And that's the conversation and where it stays. There's no possibility. The conversation that's basically starts off with, how are you doing today? Who are you today? No, no, no. You can't erase the last 40, 50 years. We're going back to 1978 with that thing that you wrote down and you published it in a paper that you did. And come on, man.
No, yeah, that's certainly not living in the moment, but
You know what? Idiots try to go back and defend what they wrote when they were in college, in a paper that they wrote at that time about whatever silly thing it was, as opposed to, I've changed my mind.
well, can you imagine now too with I mean, at least with social media, I mean, how much harder it's going to be because it'll be there at the tips of your your fingertips forever.
And I'm the first one to tell you, I just don't have a good enough memory. So you can fact check anything that I say, and I could be right or I could be wrong, but that's not what this conversation is about.
No,
This isn't like, let's go and find the chink in the armor that tears the whole suit apart, and now there's no defense. Well, you can do that, but I'm not sure that that makes the world a better place in the final analysis. I think if there's a correction that comes in and it's one where it's a material fact, or there's a concept that's kind of a linchpin or is underpinning to a greater concept that creates a better world. Oh yeah, all day long. Let's distinguish that. Let's have a minute or two. But if somebody's telling a story that it was a Thursday, or no, I think it was a Friday, like, who gives a good rap? Or even the name of a person. I want you to know that if you fact check all the stories that I've told in the last 91 episodes, the names have been changed to protect the innocent because I forgot. In some
I'm
cases,
gonna try that.
right? So, I mean, that's the whole point, because these are intellectual last, I think. I think what we're talking about here right now is, how do you carve more room for yourself? When you do a power pose, where's the facts? Ain't
Right.
no facts.
No,
Right. So
no.
we're really at the point where if enough people just declared, like, I'm going to say, anytime I hear nonsense coming out, I'm not wasting the seconds of my life that it takes to call it out. Who cares? 100 years from now, no one will remember. Truth is, 15 minutes from now, no one will remember, until you make it your life's work to make sure no one ever forgets.
Right. And that's subjective too. So I mean,
So while we're here and we're talking about respect, I I'm going to pose that my interpretation beyond what those words said, and there might be more than one dictionary that we could look into to get, maybe slightly different flavor, but I'm going to say it's a community, uh, uh, it's a community property. Uh, it's a community thing, right?
well, you might like this definition better than due regard for the feelings, wishes, rights, or traditions of others. So that definitely pertains to community, as you were saying.
I love that. And that goes full circle back to what you said. You and I don't know what we had for breakfast. I don't know what you had for breakfast. How could I presume to know all those other things about you? You know?
I'm fasting today, so I have had no breakfast.
Now, see that? Here I am operating under the premise that everyone eats breakfast, right?
Right. Right.
I've had no breakfast either. I'm fasting until after this podcast. So here we are. We've got this really cool thing of consideration and respect. And this is the hardest language on the face of the planet to learn. we have words that are spelled exactly the same and mean things that are quite different. You know, BEAR.
No, I know.
You know, and then we
Other
have words.
languages that have the they're colored and shaded just by saying one word. There's so much more meaning to it than
Or
ours.
inflection.
Yeah, yeah. Just the inflection is so important. The emphasis on the right syllable.
100%. And I really, really like that because it's like cooperation. Wait a minute. No, cooperation. No, cooperation.
It's spelled that way. Yeah.
Yeah. And the neat part of all of it is that for those of us, we learn from context. We learn from hearing it said in a particular sentence that gets said frequently, similarly to other sentences, and then we finally get it. And I remember coming home from school when we moved from upstate New York to Ledyard, Connecticut, back in 1963. I went to my first third grade class there with Mrs. Gertner, and I came home and I told my mom proudly. She said, "How'd your day go?" I said, "We disgusted so many things today. I had a great day." And she goes, "What do you mean disgusted? Were you angry?" And I said, "No, I think it means something else, Mom."
You got it all wrong. Get your thesaurus out, man.
Yeah, for sure. So but when they said we're going to discuss something, I heard a T at the end of it.
Oh yeah.
I'd never heard the word discuss before. So I mean, it's just really a fascinating opportunity here, to go through life completely mishearing, interpreting, which I think is also a word, but interpreting is probably the one that's a little easier to say.
Works
Um,
out.
it never ceases to amaze me when I go and hear somebody saying something, a word that I haven't heard before, and I go, "That's not right," because irregardless wasn't a word for a long, long time. I believe it's in the dictionary now,
Is
along with
it?
a bunch of other slang words, right?
Okay.
It's probably not, shall we say, doctoral thesis, type language, but
It's not there.
right. But we want to be inclusive and we want to have everybody feel comfortable. And there's no real reason to correct somebody who's saying a word that they have earned the right to say, right? So my favorite new one, watching several different inner city type programs, and there was one that was about Haitians that were gang members in Miami. And it's this word where they take "all right" and they change it into "I."
Oh yeah.
You know, I
I.
thought, so someone said that first, and I haven't looked that up to see if that's, if
How do
that's.
you even spell it?
I think it's AIGHT.
Let's see. Irregardless is in the dictionary.
You found it, right?
Yeah, but it's telling you that it's the misuse of.
Exactly, but they wordified it by putting it in the
Right.
dictionary. This is a word. There's probably
And
about.
then and you spelled that correctly.
Thank you.
Used to express or ask for agreement or acceptance or to introduce an utterance. It
And
doesn't even say that it's a
it's a contraction.
right. Huh.
I
I
I
I remember listening. I mean, speaking of words, because years and years and years ago, I saw Tony Randall on a talk show, and he said that he learns a new word every day. And from that moment, I know what this dent between our above our lip is called. It's called the philtrum. Just so you know, that was thanks to Tony Randall.
it's called a what?
The philtrum,
Oh, this thing here?
the little dent between your above your lips, underneath your nose, little
Okay.
indentation there. You
Well,
can't unlearn that now.
some things you can't unlearn, that's for sure, especially if they came from Tony Randall.
Exactly.
Well, I think the whole thing here, you and I we can express joy in really dissecting and distinguishing the English language. And most people are trapped in their understanding of what a word means and doesn't mean, so that it's in some cases very upsetting to them. And
Right.
at the